So my name is Schreeuwer. For a number of years I was bullied in life and in our bodies and in human behavior. In the bully dynamic as well, there's this balance of opposites. There's a constant flow of support and challenge around us. When I broke through, I totally realized this guy was trying to teach me that, wow, you've got the strength inside of you, you can protect yourself, you can do this. You've got power inside of you beyond your wildest dream, but you're just not seeing it. I'm going to share a little bit with you about something that's very close to my heart, something that ties in some ways to some of the content that Liliane spoke about. And I'm going to talk about the bullying dynamic, and I'm going to expand it and open it up and talk about it in a way which will give you a lot more clarity about what's really going on behind the scenes. It's a huge problem at the moment. It's a global epidemic. I think it's time that we really look at it from a different perspective, because in terms of the way our education system is moving forward, it's something that really needs to be addressed. But before I get into the nuts and bolts of that, I'm just going to introduce me. So my name is Schreeuwer, and I am the founder and director of a company called Be Who You Want to Be International. And the focus of my company is really around empowering young people to pursue their dreams, think different, stand outside the box, and really become inspired visionaries and leaders. And I'm dedicated to pretty much helping whoever I can achieve that. Now, prior to that, I trained as a chiropractor. So I worked as a chiropractor for 5 years and did a lot of postgraduate work in acupuncture and Chinese medicine and Reiki and allergy work and human behavior and personal development and various other bits and pieces. And if we go even further back into my life, I lived in South Africa for the first 15 years of my journey. Thank you. Woo! And that's kind of where my story begins, just with regards to the bullying dynamic. So when I was a kid, I had big ears that kind of stuck out. They don't really stick out as much now, because I kind of had some work done. Don't tell anybody that. And for a number of years, I was bullied for what I thought were big ears. And when my family and we migrated to Sydney when I was 15, I decided to have my ears pinned back cosmetically. But what I found is that, all this bullying that I experienced when I was a kid, it didn't stop. It actually continued. It continued through the rest of high school, it continued into university, and it even continued into my chiropractic career. And so I was kind of dumbfounded by this, and I had big ears, what's going on? Why are people still bullying me or challenging me or picking on me? And it got to a point when I was around 29 years old, I kind of hit the wall. I was reading a couple of books at the time. One was Losing My Virginity by Richard Branson, highly recommend it. And Nelson Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom, again, highly recommend it. Yeah. If you haven't seen the movie, go see it. If you want to brush up on some history. Yep. And I was really in a space where I wanted to empower that leader inside of me. For those of you who've been challenged before by someone, it's quite tough kind of stepping into your own and figuring out what to do with your life and where you want to take it. And you tend to feel quite weak and your self-esteem is quite low, you don't have a lot of confidence. So I kind of reached a point where I just really wanted to expand. I wanted to get out of that space that I was in. I wanted to kind of figure out how to support my own life and lead in my own life. And it was around that same time that a book came across my field of view somehow. I don't remember who gave it to me. It was a book by a well-known human behavioral specialist by the name of Dr. John DeMartini. I'm not sure if any of you guys know him. If you don't, again, I'd highly recommend checking him out. And I read his book and it just blew my mind. With all the stuff that I'd learned about Chinese medicine and the yin-yang theory and the balance of opposites, I was like, whoa, this dude knows what he's talking about. And I was working with a friend of mine who was facilitating for his programs, and she suggested I go to his program. So I decided to fly up to Brisbane to do his program of the same name. It's called the Breakthrough Experience. And in that program, I thought to myself, you know what, who am I going to work on? Who am I going to break through? What's my biggest issue right now? And there's this, for whatever reason, this kid that bullied me when I was freaking, I don't know how young, I just couldn't get him out of my head. And I'd done so much work to try and work through the issues that I had around that, I just couldn't get the image of him out of my mind. So I made a decision to work through this guy over the weekend. And I implemented John's work and his technique. And by the end of it, I totally broke through this dude. And I had the utmost gratitude and the utmost respect and appreciation and thanks for this guy. Whereas for like 29 years, or not 29 years, about 15 to 20 years of my life, I couldn't get over it. And I had so much resentment and judgment and all these sorts of things towards this guy. But what I also learned is I learned some other aspects of this dynamic. I actually learned why I was getting bullied. Not just by that guy, but by every single other person that came into my life after that, which was incredibly mind-blowing. Now, I'll share that with you in a couple of minutes. But it really drove me to work with people to break through and help them break through and transform this dynamic. Now, I've got a question to ask you guys. I can't really see all of you, but I'll do my best to kind of do what I can. And by show of hands, how many of you here have ever experienced bullying in some form? So, that can be, wait one moment, that can be in the form of someone picking on you, someone being verbally aggressive or abusive to you, someone being physically abusive or aggressive to you, someone taunting you, someone teasing you, someone confronting you, someone just, you name it. Any type of challenge where someone's challenged you. Who's experienced that? Come on. Every one of us has been challenged to some degree. Here's another question. Have any of you been in your car, driving a bit too slow, and there's some dude behind you just honking his horn, wanting you to speed up? Who's been in that experience? That is a form of bullying, just by the way. So we've all experienced bullying on some level. Now, how many of you here have ever challenged someone? Have ever confronted someone? Have ever tried to compete with someone? Maybe even picked on your brothers or sisters, kind of picked on your cousins and because they're not doing the right thing or whatever the case is. How many of you have done that? All of you. Ah, fantastic. Me too. Which basically means we've all been on both sides of this dynamic. So we've both been the ones that have challenged as much as we've been the people that have been challenged by others. So we've experienced both sides. Now, how many of you here are currently married or in a relationship or a partnership with someone, or have been in the past at least? Okay. So I got another question for you guys. In your relationship, is it ever purely and only beautiful, full of rainbows? The sex is incredible. You're just happy all the time. It's like living on cloud 9. Have any of you ever experienced that like 100% of the time? Aha, nice, I like that. Incorrect. But have you guys ever experienced a balance of both positives and negatives? Have you ever experienced in your relationship a bit of peace and war, a little bit of mean, a little bit of nice and mean, a little bit of cooperation and competition? Sex is great sometimes, but not all the time. Sometimes it's happy, sometimes it's sad. Have you guys experienced both of that in your relationships? Yeah. And another question, have you guys ever been, from the moment you were born, at least from what you can remember, have you been healthy from the moment you were born, from what you can remember? Like totally free of disease, symptoms, everything? No. So have you guys had, in your physiology, in your bodies, have you had a balance of both? Have you been sick and well, and you've had scars and places where you don't have scars and things like that? Right. So in life, and in our bodies, and in human behavior, and in the bully dynamic as well, there's this balance of opposites. There's a constant flow of support and challenge around us, constantly. And the reason why we need a lot of this support and challenge is so we can grow at our maximum potential. See, what I discovered and what I was addicted to and infatuated with, I didn't realize this, was a very one-sided reality. I wanted pleasure without pain. I wanted my bully to love me and not hate me. I wanted him to be nice and not mean. I wanted people to kind of give to me and not take from me. And I was really addicted to that, and I was totally infatuated with that. And as a consequence, I just totally wanted to avoid challenge in my life. But what I realized, and particularly what this guy taught me and what I learned from that, is that the challenges that he presented in my life, as well as many of the challenges that other people came into my life to share with me, really pushed me. They pushed my boundaries more than I thought possible. And at the time, I just didn't want to deal with it, but it was totally necessary. So there were two main things that this guy taught me. The first thing was this idea that, like I said, I was addicted to this support in my life. I wanted nurturing. I had these big ears, so I thought that's the reason why I was being bullied, so I wanted to be supported because of that. And when I broke through, I totally realized this guy was trying to teach me that, wow, you got the strength inside of you. You can protect yourself. You can do this. Like, you got power inside of you beyond your wildest dreams, but you're just not seeing it. And then when I saw that, I was like, wow, that's just totally captivated me. And the second thing he taught me, which I didn't realize at all, was to be more humble. Now, one of the things that most people don't realize about people who get challenged or get bullied by someone or get picked on some level, when they go home to their support network, the people that are supporting them, the people that support them tend to praise them and tend to elevate them and put them a little bit on a pedestal. And so what that does is it actually inflates the ego of that person. So they go back into the real wide world dealing with the different types of social dynamics. And it's only natural when they're coming off with this air of superiority that there's going to be someone on the other end of that to try and bring that person down and humble them. Because if we look at people who challenge us, particularly around bullying, they tend to be kids or tend to be people who perceive or at least feel that they're not getting nurtured the way that they really want. They feel like they're not being lifted the way that they really want. They feel down and suppressed, and in a lot of ways repressed and depressed. And so all they really want is to be recognized and noticed and seen for who they are. So interestingly enough, through this whole process of breaking through, I've kind of developed a soft spot for the bully, the challenger, because I love that guy. That guy just helped me grow more than I ever thought possible. So there are two things that I really want to kind of leave you with. Two questions to consider. Whether you're going through challenges like that today, right now in your life, or whether you've experienced things like this in the past, ask yourself this. How is this situation that I'm in right now, this challenge, this person that's really kind of been mean to me, and you can even go to extreme examples as well, because you can see the upside of that. It's challenging at first, granted. It's not easy to look at the upsides of a very, very difficult situation. But I urge you to consider that. When you're faced with challenge in your life, whether it's from a bully or any other challenge that you have to deal with, ask yourself, what is this doing for me? How's it helping me? What is it getting me to think about? Or what is it getting me to want to create or do? How's it expanding my mind? What is it getting me to think of doing instead of what I'm doing right now? And the more you answer that question over and over and over and over and over again, you'll start to see the blessing and the opportunity that it's hidden right underneath that challenge that you're faced with. And then I'm going to leave you with another question to ask yourself. Because a lot of us want more peace than war, and more kind than cruel, and more support than challenge in our lives, we tend to be driven towards that predominantly. Yet what we fail to see a lot of the time is that there are significant downsides as well to getting supported all the time. So let me ask you guys this question. For those of you who are in a relationship right now, have been in one before, you've all been through the honeymoon period, right? Yeah. Can you imagine if that lasted for your entire relationship exactly like that? It was just awesome all the time. Wouldn't you get annoyed? Wouldn't you actually want to challenge that person and piss them off and get into a fight and create some turmoil just to make it interesting? Yeah. So there are significant downsides to looking at support and wanting so much of it. And the more we want that, and the more we don't recognize that there are challenges associated with that, really the less we'll grow. Because what I've come to learn and what I really want to share with you guys is that growth truly only happens right at the border when you're supported and challenged. You can't have one without the other because the laws of nature do not dictate that, and neither do your bodies, and neither do your relationships, and neither does anything else that you can look at in your life. There's always a balance of both. And my goal and my message is really about sharing that with you guys. So ultimately you can learn what it takes to be an empowered leader in yourself, that you have the potential just as much as I do, Suli does, Jamie does, Lillian does, to go and do something incredible and meaningful with your life and share your beautiful light with the world. So thanks, guys.